What's going on, you guys? You're looking at the 2021 Dodge Challenger Scatpack, and you can pick one of these up for around $40,000. But should you? Let's tear this thing up and find out. Under this massive hood, you get a 6.4 liter naturally aspirated V8 that makes 485 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. All of that power is sent to the rear wheels, which those tires are only 245 in width, but it might surprise you how well this does in traction. So the internet claims that this car will do 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds and the quarter mile in the mid-12s. But let's see what this will actually do in a 0 to 60 on normal conditions. Let's do a launch and see what this thing can do. This car absolutely moves, and I'm gonna give this an A. Yes, when you're in first gear, it struggles with traction a little bit, but after that, this thing tosses you back into your seat. The owner ranked this as a B, which was pretty surprising to me. Now, braking is a pretty underrated category. That's one of the most important ones for me. So in the front, you have 4-piston big Brembo brakes, and in the back, you also have 4-piston Brembos. And let's see how well this car stops at 60 miles an hour. Ready? Go. Not too shabby. You can definitely feel the weight of the car just pushing everything forward, but that's acceptable for sure. This car will stop very, very well, but I noticed when you start pushing it, accelerating, braking, the brakes do get a little bit skippy as they get hot or just used a whole bunch. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a C. And the owner of this car graded the braking power as a B. Now, this category is going to be a rough one for the Dodge Challenger. That is not what this car was made for at all. It's so big and weighs so much, but nonetheless, let's take some corners at high speeds and see how it performs. Here we go. All right, we got a turn up here. Let's see how this boat handles it. You feel the weight, 4,300 pounds, and this car is so long too. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give this a D, and the owner ranked this as a C, which are both pretty fair ratings. If you're gonna spend $40,000 and you want a car that can take corners fast, this is not it. Now, here is another very crucial category. I did a bunch of reading on the reliability and was very shocked to see that almost everyone had great things to say about how these cars hold up. I spoke with the owner about it, and he said he has had 0 issues. He's owned a 2018 Scatpack and this car as well. So that kind of took me by surprise. I'm gonna trust what he says, and I'm gonna trust the online ratings as well, and I'm gonna give this car an A, and so did the owner. Now, starting off on the front end of this car, it has a very boxy design, but it's definitely maintained the heritage of the Chargers and Challengers, which you have to respect that. It's got 4 halo-styled headlights in the front, and by the way, I love the wrap that the owner did on this car. A lot of people with Chargers and Challengers they wreck them with how many exterior elements they put on it and all these like fancy stickers and all this, but I think this hood looks very nice for this car. On this hood, you get 3 functional hood vents, and they're not just functional. They are the most functional hood vents I have ever felt on any car before. Right when you start this up, when you put your hand over it, I mean, you already feel the heat. I don't know how they did that, but that is better than some of the BMWs and Porsches that I've seen. And when you get close to those headlights, it looks like those are air intakes, but unfortunately on the Scatpacks, they're closed off, so those are fake. That is reserved for the Hellcats. Now, moving along to the side of this car, it still has that very boxy design, but it does look really good, especially in this blue color. You get that Scatpack badge on the side, which gives this away as something special. You have those huge yellow Brembo brakes, and you have these nicely designed wheels as well. Also, the fuel cap on this car is very unique, and I do like that a lot. It gives it kind of a muscly feeling. In the back of this car, you're gonna have a pretty nicely sized spoiler, another Scatpack badge, and you also have fake exhaust tips, but they do look better than what they would be if that wasn't there. And again, in the back, it's very square and boxy, which, you know, that's up to your own personal taste on whether you like that or not. For me personally, I'm very torn between a B and a C. Just because it has those badges, yellow Brembo brakes, and this nice hood wrap, I am going to give it a B. I would prefer to do a B-, but I just like to keep these grades straightforward. And the owner did agree with that. He gave it a B himself. Now, if you're buying a sports car, this one is very, very important too. Now, unfortunately, after around 2018, 2019, some regulations came in and they just don't sound as good as they used to. But instead of me talking about how it sounds, take a listen for yourself. It is absolutely a fact that in this price range, you can get several cars that simply sound better than this. A C7 Corvette, a C6 Corvette, a Mustang GT. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a C. And that is also where the owner ranked this exhaust sound. Now, right when you open the door of this car, there's a lot of pros and cons you can notice immediately. First of all, the door panel is very bare, and you don't get Scatpack on the door sill. I told you guys I was on a mission to find a car that doesn't put the car's name on the door sill. This is the first one I've ever seen that doesn't have that. Now, in this specific car, the owner did not get leather seats, so these are cloth, but I don't see the need to spend thousands of dollars extra to get leather seats. These feel just fine to me. You do get the Scatpack logo on the seats though, and that's pretty cool. Now, right when you jump into the driver's seat, you're presented with, well, a very, very long front end, a nice old school gauge cluster setup except for the middle screen that is configurable, and you can see the top speed that this car has hit. Yep, 167 miles an hour. I would love to be in the car when that happened. And the steering wheel is pretty standard. I really wish they put something like SRT or Scatpack in the middle instead of just Dodge. That would really help make it feel more special. This car does come with paddle shifters, but you don't even need to use them. This is the most responsive car I have ever felt in my life. This thing will accelerate at the lowest gear possible before you even hit the gas pedal. Watch, I'm gonna hit it in 3, 2, 1. Boom! All right, let's skip to the interesting part of this car. In this little gauge cluster here, you have a launch button and you can select the RPMs you'd like to launch at, and that is fun to use. Ready, set, go. Also have selectable drive modes in here, and you can even individually configure the different drive modes. All of that is possible within this infotainment system, and you get even more cool stuff in here. This is like a toy for an adult, and I absolutely love it. In here, you get to see exactly how much horsepower you're using at any given time. You get your gear, G-force meter, performance metrics, and so much more. This is the best infotainment system I have ever used. It's even super responsive, and I just love all the information, performance stuff, historical data, everything you can access in this infotainment system. Every sports car should have this kind of infotainment system. And yes, this is a 4-door car, but I was expecting the back seats to be a bit more roomy. It's really not that good. The M4 that I reviewed had bigger back seats, and that's a smaller car. Mind you, the trunk space in here is massive. So yeah, it's a give and take. It's kind of deceiving looking at how long the front end is and then how long the back end is, but that's mostly the hood and the trunk, not the interior space. So considering all of the highlights we just went over, I was going to give this interior a D for being $40,000 because the materials in here are just not that nice, but this infotainment system makes me bring it up to a C. Again, coolest infotainment system ever. And the owner ranked the interior design as a B. Now, as for comfort, this is a pretty big car and it handles bumps and all that very, very nicely. You even get heated seats in here, but there's nothing too over the top. And, you know, the ride quality is all right. It's definitely more so a straight line floor type of car. So I'm gonna give it a C for comfort, and the owner also agreed. Now, maybe you're looking at everything we just went over and saying, this is a car I might want to consider. Let's now talk about cost of ownership. This took me by surprise. I called the owner and asked him a bunch of questions, and he said the cost of ownership sucks, which makes sense. This is a Scatpack. You have those huge Brembo brakes. This is not a cheap car to maintain. As for your MPG in this car, you get 14 in the city and 23 on the highway. That is pretty bad. If you drive like the regular person, you could expect to pay around $240 to $250 a month in just gas. And yes, this takes 93. So without factoring in finance payments, you could expect to dole out around $540 per month in just keeping up with this car. And if you were to finance this car at 60 months at around a 7% interest rate, you're looking at around $700 to $750 per month in payments. And that is why the owner ranked this as a D, which is fair. I'll put it right there with him. Again, he's the owner, so I trust what he says. So here is the final rating that this car gets. And what do you guys think about that? Should you consider this in a list of cars you would buy for $40,000? If you've owned this car, let me know what your experience is with all these categories. I'd love to hear it in the comments. Be sure to check out my other reviews as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.